Good afternoon, Mr. Minister, and thank you very much for coming. I know that you have taken the trouble of flying down from Mumbai.
No, it's always a great pleasure being with you, Arnab.
So it's a pleasure to meet you as well. And there couldn't have been a better occasion than this, because you are the man who the Prime Minister trusts. And there are many ministers, lots of ministers, but you're the minister in the Prime Minister's office. And you have the unique privilege of working directly with the Prime Minister. And you work with Prime Minister Modi on science and technology and space and all these next big leap ideas directly with the Prime Minister. And therefore, that puts you in a pole position today. For us, everybody who is gathering in this event and everybody who's going to be watching this, they want a sense of the government's thinking in areas such as science and technology, which you look at, in areas such as space, which you look at, in areas such as digital governance, which you look at, and most importantly, with the project Shanti being announced, in areas such as nuclear science and atomic energy, which you look at. So this is a very, very important session. And anyone who wants to understand what the government of India, what the Modi government is doing in these areas, and what is happening between the announcements of the government and the outcome that is going to be achieved, will be watching this conversation very keenly. So we are very, very, very happy that someone like you has come to our event, and this is going to be broadcast all over the world. So this session matters a lot. So let's give a round of applause first to the Minister, Mr. Jitendra Singh, who's a union minister, as I said, whose department spans science, space, atomic energy, digital governance. He's going to be talking to us about the decade ahead and the gap that we have to close between the announcement and the outcome. So to start with, sir, what is happening? What is the top priority in the Modi government right now? What is the top priority in the Prime Minister's mind, since you work so closely with him, sir?
Yeah, thank you, Arnab. At the outset, thanks for your very kind words and very generous introduction. Now, I think to begin with, because you have virtually covered the entire gamut of the different initiatives undertaken by the government over the last 10, 12 years. And since 9th of June, we are going to complete the 2 years of this government as well, the third term. I think I'll begin by first trying to understand myself and also sharing with others what is the difference between now and what it was in the past.
Yes.
And how do we look at the future? Because as Churchill said, the longer you look back, the farther you look forward. So I think the biggest difference, to simplify it, that as far as science technology is concerned, we are not lagging behind any other nation. Yes. It's not like about a decade or so back, or about 2 decades back, when a success story happened elsewhere, and then we emulated it. Like, for example, IT happened in India about a decade and a half later than the other countries.
Yes.
Television happened here after a decade.
Yes.
I think the most distinct example is that of the 1960 presidential election of the United States, where Kennedy turned the tables on Nixon. Correct. And the entire
thing was televised.
It was all televised, and television did the magic and the trick. But over here, we got to see the first Chitrahar somewhere in the 1970s. But it's no longer so. When we are talking of science technology, we are one of the few nations who have a dedicated national quantum mission, just about 3 or 4 or 5. You very rightly mentioned the Shanti Act. I think we are among the very few nations, about 3 or 4, who have had the courage and conviction to open up the nuclear sector to the private players. This is something which was not expected, not imagined, not demanded. There was no pressure to do so. And I have no hesitation saying that it is possible because of the political dispensation headed by Prime Minister Modi, who has the capacity to take out-of-box decisions, who has the capacity to break the taboos of the past, which he did even 5 years back when we opened up the space sector as well. So on the one hand, we have now adopted an approach which is very competitive. We have and we size for ourselves a global role. Look here, we are not going to wait for others to experiment and then learn from them. Like, for example, space, we started off much later compared to USA or the then USSR. But we are the first to have landed on the south pole of the Chandra moon. We are among the first to have launched a solar mission called Aditya. And therefore, and now we are dropping cues for others. Our International Service Space Station, where one of our astronauts, Shubhanshu, was accompanying, did experiments in biotechnology for which the kits were provided by India.
Yes.
But the benefits are going to be for the rest of the mankind as well, which Prime Minister mentions as Vishwabandhu. So we are now also looking at ourselves as global players, competitive, not only competitive, but also dropping cues for others or taking lead in certain ways. So that is one thing. The other is we are also now looking at ourselves to be future ready, as you said, for the next decade or the second half of the 21st century. And to that extent, we have this realization, broadly speaking, in two areas. A, that when we talk of 2047, when India celebrates the 100th year of its independence, of her independence, we would be able to reach that pedestal only if we are able to explore some of those resources which have hitherto remained underexplored or unexplored, which includes space, which includes oceans. We have about 11,000 to 12,000 long kilometer coastal area. We have about 12 states located along the coast. One of the longest coastal areas in the world. We are the only country which has an ocean named after her, the Indian Ocean. But still, we never looked at it. It's only now that we have started this deep ocean mission, etc. Which
yes.
and the Prime Minister has given it such a high priority that he spoke about it from the ramparts of Red Fort not once but twice in 2 consecutive Independence Days in 2023 and 2024. So when we are able to explore that huge wealth of fisheries, diversities, minerals, mines, we would be able to we do that value addition for rising to pedestal number 1. Same with the space. We were working behind a veil of secrecy, both space as well as... first time we opened up, in fact, even the media was not allowed into the launching station.
Yes.
But the first time when they opened up, we had about 1,500 media persons and about 10,000 spectators. So we are now following global strategies because if we have to reach there, we have to follow global benchmarks, we have to follow global strategy, and we have to follow global parameters. We cannot remain complacent or cannot be contented just by doing what we thought we would be doing good enough for ourselves. So we have now changed the mindset. That is a very big change. Even in space, if you take the figures, the statistics, because we live in an evidence-based age, before the space sector opened up, about 5 or 6 years back, our space economy was almost dismal. The number of space startups was in single digit. Just 5 years down the line, we have more than 400 space startups. One of them just turned unicorn
Yes.
2 days back. They are of global potential. And our space economy has gone up to almost $9 billion as of today. And the pace is so fast, the graph is going up so fast that in next 8 to 10 years, we hope to go up to 40 billion or 45 billion. That means 5-6 times higher. So I think this change of mindset, change of approach has been possible because we had no dearth of talent in this country. We had no dearth of human resource in this country. Just if you go to the archives, you'll see the pictures of Vikram Sarabhai carrying some of his saman on the bicycle. I mean, that was the kind of commitment, that was the kind of passion. But what was lacking was the kind of patronage, the kind of enabling milieu which is provided by the policymakers of the country, by the political dispensation. And that gap was made up after Prime Minister Modi came in. And I think now our thinking is global, our competitiveness is global. Even if you take, for example, the nuclear energy, we have, this I think has been a very courageous step, the Shanti Act that you mentioned, that we are now, and there's so much of enthusiasm. Just about 3 months have passed since we came out with the Shanti Act. The rules are going to be rolled out in just another couple of weeks or months. But there's so much of interest. Only the other day we had a US delegation of industry representatives visiting New Delhi. Then they came to the city of Mumbai as well. So I think the world has now started looking up to us as potential partners. That too is a change. The way the world looks up to us, they look up to us as a profitable business partner, also as a mutually beneficial technology collaborator. Is no longer a second fiddle now. So that's I think the whole change.
How deep does Prime Minister Modi get into issues regarding space, science? You mentioned deep sea exploration. You mentioned nuclear energy, AI. On a working model, because we don't get to know how the Prime Minister's office works, we would want to know, how deep does the Prime Minister get into these issues? In how much detail does he follow?
No,
or does he give the broad perspective and leave you to do it or to finish the job?
No, I think one distinct feature of Prime Minister
Sir,
Modi...
can you hold the mic closer?
I think one distinct feature of Prime Minister Modi is that he's very well informed. Even when you go to make a presentation before him, invariably he would have already studied the subject. And more often than not, he will come back with 1 or 2 cues being dropped by him for a presentation to be made again. So there have been occasions when a series of presentations had to be made before him, and he each time would give suggestions. Like, for example, I didn't mention that in my opening remarks. The other area that we have opened up now is the biotechnology, because we believe, the world now has started believing that the next industrial revolution is going to be biotechnology-driven, as the last one was IT-driven. It's going to be genomes, it's going to be recycling, it's going to be all synthetic things. Already, one of the startups of Bengaluru has already started, he started as a startup, now they become big entrepreneurs, this animal-free milk, etc. So we are among the few nations who have come out with a dedicated biotechnology policy called BioE3, which means biotechnology for economy, biotechnology for environment, biotechnology for employment. And that too, a series of presentations had to be made before the Honorable Prime Minister. He did the fine-tuning, and he could also convince other colleagues in the council about the importance of this, because this is something which commonly is not very easily realized, why we should rush through this, because this is going to happen tomorrow, but it's going to happen. So we are not going to lag behind when it happens. So luckily we have a Prime Minister who is not only himself he's not only technology savvy, he is also ahead of others, because in this age and time, what is important for each one of us, and I think that applies to each one of us, is to be a good learner. Because what I try to learn today for tomorrow, by the time tomorrow happens, I realize this was yesterday's learning. So fast is the pace of the developments happening. So to that extent is always, that's why I say it is one of the best times happening for India in the last 80 years as far as science technology is concerned. We have political patronage in abundance, and we have opened up in a big way to the private sector, because the age of silos is over, and we have this realization, very conscious realization, that if we have to move on from where we are, we have to move on in integrated fashion. Look at what was happening in India, and as I said in the beginning, the change of mindset. We sometimes indulge in casual gupshup. So when you go for a morning walk, you say, "Saab, Chandrayaan chala gaya." "Arey saab, kya hua? America to itne saal pehle chala gaya tha." But nobody realizes the strategy that they followed. NASA never depended on government. Government was just a facilitator. Now we have started gradually moving on that. And I think very recently, the Prime Minister himself announced that in the month of November, the RDI fund, 1 lakh crore. It's one of the unique initiatives now, which
the Innovation Fund.
Yeah, I think very few governments do that.
But is it enough?
No, it's not that. Of course, that we can take a call again. But what is important is, this is one of the rare occasions where government is coming forward to fund the private sector.
Right.
The idea is, because I believe, like others also may be, that even the private sector has been taken by surprise. India's businessman was more into manufacturing, other sectors, never thought suddenly he'll be asked to take part in the manufacturing of nuclear reactors or manufacturing of rockets.
Suddenly opened up.
So in order to accelerate the private sector so that he also climbs up and then becomes a healthy mutual partner with the government, this fund was conceived. And and it's a very easy fund. You know, we just expect the private partner to raise 50% of the total fund, which could be raised from different sources, not necessarily from your pocket. It could be from philanthropy, it could be from NGOs, it could be from foundations. And then we fund the rest of the 50% on a very minimal interest, say about 2 or 3% over a long period of time, and a non-secure loan.
But we're not doing very well on R&D. Would you agree? Our R&D spending
Yes.
has remained. The problem with India is innovation now. And China, America, they are moving very fast.
No,
we have an innovation
yeah.
gap, and our R&D spending remains below 1% of GDP for decades.
So
China, South Korea, Taiwan, US, you know. So I really appreciate that you have got an innovation gap, but all our audiences looking upon this as a science and technology innovation forum want to know, are you happy with that 1% gap? Does the private sector needs to step up? Does the government need to put more aside? Because, you know, sorry to make this a long question, but you can build a lot of startups. But are we in a position to build a Tesla? Are we in a position to compete with global players even in space? The number of startups has gone up in space, for example. It has gone, there are many startups, about 400 I've told last count. But how many of them 5 years from now will be able to compete with the SpaceX or China commercially? And how do we build that domestic ecosystem now so that, you know, in the next 5 or 6 years, we are sovereign on these issues?
No, I agree with you. Sovereignty is something that we look forward to and we seek to have. But I think overall, summing up all that you pointed out, we need to have a wholesome ecosystem. And fortunately, that realization has also dawned only in the last 1 decade. Earlier on, everything was confined to the government, and as you rightly mentioned, the budget was very meager. If you compare the figures, our GERD, the gross expenditure in R&D, in 2014, when this government came, was just about 60,000 crore. Now it's gone up more than double. It's about 120, 130 crore. So government spending has gone up. In each of these science departments, the budget has gone up by more than 100%. But right, as I mentioned, no government anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world can do the total funding to achieve the optimum results. So that realization has also now been accepted and that's been acted upon. That's why the private sector has been given huge kind of a leverage in space, in nuclear energy, and they are also now coming forward. So that's the reason our pace of progress has increased, and I'm sure the scenario will change sooner than faster, sooner than later. And as far as the startups are concerned, again, it's amazing. In 2014, there were hardly 350 or 370 startups. Today, as on today, we are more than 220,000. We are ranked 3 in the world, globally ranked 3. And these over 2 lakh startups have generated about 23 or 24 lakh jobs. So this, as I said, mindset earlier on, the youth was a prisoner of a Sarkari Naukri mindset. Now they also have started looking up to avenues outside the government sector, which are now becoming available more and more in abundance and in various different categories, different classes. So job generation through startups, entrepreneurship through startups. This RDI fund is also serving to an extent that purpose. It's meant for TR4 level. That means not necessarily a beginner in startup because we have different provisions for that. Like for example, in deep tech startups, only last month we did away with a provision which was there in CSIR, which funds these deep tech startups. There, you had to prove your existence for at least 3 years.
Yes.
And there was a reason behind that, because if the government funds you, or whichever funding agency gives you money and then you disappear, you're not able to preserve yourself or survive for 3 years, then where does the money go? But I said, no, we will take that risk. We did away with that. As you rightly mentioned, science, innovation requires money. It also requires the courage to take risk. Usually governments are not used to that, particularly governments which have been functional in India. So for the first time, we have a government which is now ready to follow the strategies which are being, or the best practices elsewhere as well. And we are now also coming up with best practices on our own. So our startups, some of them are of global relevance. So I think now we are in the same league, and that's the reason why other countries are now showing interest in India. An Indian youth, simply by saying that you come from India, when you travel abroad, your market rating goes up. Your employment rating goes up, which was not so about 2 decades back. So I think that's so much so that I was amazed. Most of the food startups in countries like Germany and UK, even from Pakistan, are projecting themselves as Indians because that increases their prospects of profitability. Yeah. So I think India has now come of age. It's come in a big way.
Why do you keep saying in your speeches that science must move from laboratories to markets, from ideas to impact? But then I will counter you by saying that our R&D spend is 0.7 of the GDP for 20 years. Private sector contributes only a third of that. So do we need a policy change that moves those numbers in the next, say, 5 years?
I agree with you. Rather, I am very unorthodox in that. I will go one step further to say that I have been advocating the engagement of industry right from day one, even when I conceive a project. Earlier, the thinking was, the mindset was, you carry forward a project. When you reach a certain stage, you want to go over to the market, you want to translate it, then you start looking for partners. But I would personally say, and I am glad, there are now many takers of this view, we need to have early industry engagement. That's why in every meeting of ours, we also make sure that we have industry partners. We have been holding industry outreach programs all across the country, including the city of Mumbai. We had about 2 months back, then Chandigarh, Delhi, etc., Bangalore. And so that, and also go to the extent of giving the industry the freedom to decide the theme of the project, what is saleable, what is needed, what has the potential to, because it's easy to start a startup. It's not that easy to sustain a startup. It's not that easy to raise that startup to the level of an entrepreneur. For that, you need to have money. You need to have good market standing. And for that, you need to have industry right from the beginning. And that's why I said we are quite open to it. And all this rapid progress which has happened in the last few years has happened because of that integrated approach. So I agree with you. On the one hand, of course, the GERD has been sought to be raised by this government. On the other hand, funding for the private sector has also been encouraged. And they are coming forward. It's not that the private sector is not. The only thing that they didn't know that we would have somebody like Prime Minister Modi who will suddenly open up the nuclear sector, suddenly open up the space sector. And now they are gearing up for that.
Now explain this.
And now you'll just see, for FDI, we made so much relaxations.
Yeah.
Even for nuclear reactors, the duty there's a duty exemption on the import of components for nuclear reactors for next 4 or 5 years, I think up to 2033, announced in this budget.
How do you take such a decision? Don't you worry that you might, after all, some people will say that, you should have a homegrown model. Why do you want to open up to private players? How do you trust the private players with nuclear energy? How much FDI will be opened up?
No,
how will you keep the guardrails? How will you manage the sector? If there is a war tomorrow, if there's a conflict tomorrow, will these same organizations stand with national interest?
No, we are not selling out our R&D. We are very much indigenous. You will be glad to know that even in defense, now that you took over the defense, even in defense, in 2025, our defense production was more than 1.5 lakh crore.
Yes.
Which is about 174% higher than what it was in 2014. We are so much indigenous. And not only that we were importing till about 10 years back, we are now exporting. Our export in the year that is just concluded has been about 23,000 crore, more than that. And in that 23,000 crore also, as much as 14 to 15,000 crore has been the contribution of the private sector. So the private sector of India, the public sector of India. And we are now exporting our defense products and defense equipment even to several European countries like France, Canada. Indonesia has had a deal with us to purchase the BrahMos missiles.
Yeah.
So I think we have also established the credibility of our quality, the qualitative credibility of products.
Yeah.
And we are indigenous while getting investments from the private sector.
Yeah, but don't open the news media. Don't open the news media to these foreign players. You can't trust them. You can trust Republic. You can trust Republic, right?
But I'm safe
you don't-
having trusted Arnab. All of you agree?
Now, I want some breaking news. Like, you opened up the space.
I've known Arnab for almost 20 years
I
now.
know.
I've been visiting even from that small office that you had,
Yeah,
I think, in Mumbai.
No, it's been a pleasure. No, but my breaking news, I want the space sector was opened up to private players and a wave of startups followed. So can you give us a little hint of which is the next portfolio that is in line for that kind of treatment? Please don't look at me like that. I'm only asking a simple question. I'm a simple reporter, you see. I'm asking the minister a question that, Mr. Minister, you know everything. I just want to know a little bit of what you know.
No, but I just...
Which sector would you like to open up? Or broadly, you can say that, hasn't it been exciting? You opened up space sector, and I feel so happy. People come and meet me. The potential of this country is unlimited.
No, but Arnab,
I see young people making
in
the
your
most,
opening remarks...
I met a couple of young people recently. I said, what do you do? They said, we make rockets.
Yes.
I said, you make rockets? Like what kind of rockets?
The one who turned this unicorn, they have a beautiful factory just close to the Hyderabad
It's truly
airport.
incredible when you meet college graduates making rockets, and actually there are people who worked with ISRO who are working with them. So, you got to unleash potential. Which sector are you looking to unleash that potential in?
But
next?
yes, but picking up from your opening remarks,
Sir.
one thing that we missed out, you also mentioned governance.
Yeah.
I think for the first time under Prime Minister Modi, technology has been made the hallmark of bringing in ease of governance and thereby ease of living for the common citizen. I think 80 to 90% of work is online. That's the reason during COVID also, there was not a single day of work interruption as far as the government of India is concerned. The direct benefit transfer and all these stories are making a global buzz now. And even in the Ministry of Personnel, we have brought in so many reforms. Our grievance cell was virtually lying redundant in 2014. There were only 2 lakh complaints being registered in the entire year because there was no response.
Do people read the complaints?
Nobody was reading at that time. Now we have about 25 to 30 lakh because we have been prompt, we have been responsive. Our response time is about 95 to 98% every week. When we started off this transformation, I used to myself randomly call the complainants. So to begin with, they would not believe. Well, then they would go to website to check my photograph, to check me. Gradually, we have improved upon that. We have actually worked hard, and that is all technology-driven, AI-driven. And then, because we also have been in the learning process. Like, for example, about a year and a half back, I told the secretary, I said, our disposal rate is almost 100%, but people are not happy. Because there's something called happiness index being discussed in Europe today. Because the complainant thinks, look here, if I say why I'm not in Arnab's seat, the response comes, you don't deserve to be. You are not qualified now, but I'm not satisfied because my aspiration is different. So we introduce a human cell to AI. So after the disposal of each complaint, one human being talks to the complainant. So we have also been learning and trying to graduate to the next levels. So similarly, our digital life certificate, earlier on, the elders, to draw their pensions and other benefits, had to produce a certificate of being alive from the doctor, which we thought was very inhuman. So we immediately switched over to biometry, and then people started living long because India's average lifespan is going up and up each day. And the fingerprints also are not very reliable after the certain age. Then we moved over to face recognition technology. I think we are among the first in the government sector to have introduced face recognition technology for elder citizens. Just look into the app of the mobile. And in 30, 40 seconds, the certificate is generated. Even the grandchildren are taking pleasure in they're enjoying getting this process done for the grandparents.
So, but what about my breaking news question? It didn't answer. One small question I had. Anyway, I will not push you on it. So how wonderfully experienced you are.
All the friends here are laughing. I think that is the answer.
He's the minister in the PMO. He knows exactly how to dodge the question if required. But I must tell you this, sir. The young people in this country want to contribute to this country. Wherever I go now, I tell you a change. And we must credit Prime Minister Modi for it. I think Prime Minister deserves some support. He's the Prime Minister's minister. We must credit the Prime Minister's vision. When I go out today, I travel abroad, the gleam and glitter I see in the eyes of the young Indian who says, what can I do? What more can I do? I don't see that in the United Kingdom. I haven't traveled that much to the US or in Europe. So I think
No,
big credit
I
to you
just
for
to
that.
add to what you said,
my,
just in the month of November or December, I also had a round table with the Indian diaspora.
Yes.
We invited them to Delhi.
Yes.
In a huge number.
yes, I remember.
And most of them want to come back.
Come back to India.
But the point is now they are held back for other reasons, because once you've settled there for about 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, you raised a family, you raised children who
Yeah.
would not be willing
Yeah.
to come back.
No, no.
So
But I
that's
met
why
a
my
lot of-
advice to the youngsters is that if you are planning to go out
Yeah.
for a while for capacity building,
Yeah.
make a time plan right in the beginning.
come
Don't
back.
go with this mindset कि वहाँ जाके सोचेंगे कि
Yeah.
सोचे में एक साल निकलता है. When you settle down there,
Yeah.
then you might like to come, but your children will hold you back. So that we have seen in number of
This is-
instances.
this
But
is-
now India is a happening
No,
destination.
it's not
a
just
happening destination.
Indian diaspora. So I met a lot of young people. They were once getting on a flight, 100 of them. They were traveling, the government got them, and these were people of Indian origin from different countries,
Yes.
from Africa, from Cuba, from Southeast Asia. And they were amazed at what they saw in India, and they said, we want to come back, though our generations ahead, our families have left
And
India.
Arnav, you have certain advantages of working in India, because we have a large pool to do research on. Now, I was talking in genomes. We have more than 4,000 racial, distinct races
Yes.
living in India.
Yes.
It's not a small homogeneous country like a small European country. So for an enthusiastic, for a curious scientist, researcher, you can do the gene studies and gene sequencing much more effectively, and you can provide your results to the rest of the world. Similarly, we have also now launched something called WebHub, which is a program to incentivize those of the scientists or researchers who want to come back to India. We arrange projects for them in some of the leading institutions, maybe an IIT, maybe Indian Institute of Science, like that. So the government also is going
Yeah.
out of way.
Yeah, and given your own scientific background, you'll get my next question. I was just saying that young people want to work in emerging areas, areas of frontier science. I have a couple of more questions for you. Now, we want to do simultaneous breakthroughs in space, deep sea exploration, advanced technology, AI over the next decade. You are planning Gaganyaan, and we hope you're the man, he's the man looking after Gaganyaan, so let's give him a round of applause for that. We're going to put our manned space mission. How confident are you on Gaganyaan, sir? How's the
No,
progress
absolutely.
going?
Our progress is going quite well. We had certain delays also to an extent because of the imponderables. The COVID came in. That was the time when our potential astronauts were undergoing training at the Gregory Institute in Moscow. They had to be called back. Then the things went haywire. So this year we'll have all the test flights concluded, maybe next year. But talking of the deep tech, you'll be glad to know we launched our quantum mission about 3 years back.
Yes.
And the mission plan was for 8 years. And we have 4 verticals: quantum computing, quantum communication, quantum sensors, quantum material. And for each of these, we set certain targets for ourselves for 8 years. Now, the most important from the point of view of the media, from the point of view of defense, is the communication. So in communication, we envisage for ourselves 2,000 kilometer secure quantum communication target in 8 years. That means you will have that is the distance we would have covered. But I'm glad to share with you that in less than 4 years, that is just about 3 years, we've already completed half the target. That is 1,000 kilometer of quantum communication India is today capable of doing. Similarly, artificial, and this is all done by this government. And thanks to it, wouldn't have happened but for the intelligence of Prime Minister Modi. This quantum mission we started in 2023, and AI mission in 2024. Again, it has 4 verticals with AI compute, AI data set, AI innovations, AI future learning. And there too, we are, as you rightly mentioned, the more we grow in AI, we will have a lot of energy requirements, 24/7 energy supply, which would come from the nuclear energy. That's why we also simultaneously set up a nuclear energy mission.
Yeah.
And
But where are we on AI?
At the same time, as the data grows,
Yeah.
it will be also generating jobs, mostly the engineering jobs in lakhs and lakhs. So that.
But are we doing as well on AI as we should, like with major, our AI mission budget is far smaller than what major US companies spend. Is India trying to compete in the same race as the US and China?
Yeah,
or are we deliberately trying to build a different AI model focused on democratic access, vernacular languages, public digital infrastructure?
Yes.
What's the vision? Is our
No,
strategy long-term different from that of US
you are
and
right.
China?
You're
And
right.
will it work?
You're right in certain ways. We have a different challenges which are also our advantage.
Yeah.
Like, for example, when you prepare a long language module, LLM, it's not a homogeneous country where the entire nation speaks only one language, maybe English, or the entire nation speaks only French, and you need to have a model of only 2 languages. We have 22 languages in 8 schedule. But when we are working on the ground, because I have been practicing in telemedicine myself in my constituency, because originally I happen to be a medical professional, we have developed a language module on our own, my group, which is not based entirely on the 8 schedule. Because, for example, in Uttar Pradesh, official language will be Hindi, but in certain parts you speak Bhojpuri, certain parts you speak Khadi. So when you are talking to a patient, you can't ask him to speak in the official Hindi. You will have to speak. So that is a challenge, but at the same time, that widens our data.
True.
Even, for example, Jammu Kashmir, the official local languages are Dogri and Kashmiri.
Yes.
But if you go to Bhadrawa, the language is Bhadrawai. If you go to, so that way we have a huge challenge, but at the same, so again, I think the private players are doing a fantastic job over there as well. Now, AI, and we are growing a wholesome ecosystem because AI will require data, AI will also require engineer experts, AI will also require clean sources of energy because we are now getting into clean source era, which is uninterrupted, and AI will also require data sovereignty, as you rightly mentioned. And so therefore, I think it's something which is going to be a part of a larger ecosystem. And I'm glad that we are trying to work simultaneously, keeping the Indian conditions in mind, keeping also the traditional Indian knowledge. Like, for example, National Research Foundation that we launched about 2 years back, which is known Anusandhan. I can say with all the confidence in my command, is a better version of the National Research Foundation that are there in some of the other countries, like the USA or the Germany, because we have incorporated the Indian components. Like, for example, we have also incorporated the Indian traditional knowledge.
Yes.
And then in our governing body, we don't have representatives essentially only from the scientific world. We have representatives from social sciences, from humanities, in order to give them the cultural angle as well. So I think in many ways, we are now qualitatively also trying to raise our standards comparatively better compared to many others. And that's why that would also enable us to perform the role of Vishwa Bandhu Bharat, because we can be dropping cues for others as well.
How are government officials changing in today's time? You know, this is a day and age of domain expertise. Our bureaucracy we understand how you are working. We understand the Prime Minister's vision. You have announced semiconductor mission, quantum mission, AI mission in quick succession. There are a lot of founders in the room. There are entrepreneurs. They want to know, yes, you've got your vision.
I'm glad.
What about the whole system?
Very nice.
You see, our system is, but you can say very nice, but you didn't give me my breaking news.
I'm glad.
You get my point.
No, but I get your point, and I appreciate the question.
Thank you, sir.
That's very true, because bureaucracy also is, by training or by conditioning, used to function in a status quo mode. But I'm glad Prime Minister Modi has tried to shake that. When we are talking of technology and governance, I'm glad to share we have, it was the idea of Prime Minister Modi, we come out with something called Mission Karma Yogi. Now, Mission Karma Yogi, in a single sentence, means shifting the role of a bureaucrat or a civil servant from rule to role.
Okay.
Instead of allowing him to become a prisoner of a rule book, so he keeps on scanning through the pages and keeps putting notes on the file, keeping him moving to and fro and not getting through. So instead of, he should live up to the role. And for that, we have created an iGOT platform, which also enables a bureaucrat or a civil servant to train himself for the new assignment that he's taking up. Like, for example, what happens is today, an IAS officer is an agriculture secretary.
Correct.
Next morning, he becomes a health secretary.
Yes. And then
now he has to run the writ of governance on the doctors. So he should not feel tempted to write a prescription better than a doctor, but he should have the confidence to govern over them. So we train them. So this is an online platform called iGOT. We have already got crores of users registered on that. They can train themselves. And now in the Rozgar Melas, one of the Rozgar Melas is happening tomorrow itself. We have also made it a practice that along with the appointment letter, we also give an option of Mission Karma Yogi Prarambh. Like, for example, if somebody is going to take up a railway job, what will be the kind of
That's excellent.
capacities expected of him or her, and how he or she would train.
So straight KRAs are there.
You are right. I agree with you. Prime Minister Modi has also tried to shake the
mindset.
the civil
Yes.
services out of that stereotype model
Yeah.
into a more dynamic model.
Yeah. So
Our curriculum, our culture, even in the academy in Mussoorie, has undergone
Yeah.
a huge change. Earlier on,
Yeah.
the faculty was mostly from humanities.
Yeah.
Now we have faculty for the
but
youngsters.
you
from
should take people from all sectors. So may I make a
Absolutely.
small suggestion?
Yeah, no,
you know,
even
the best
communication.
minds. We need to have a reverse brain drain in this country. The government needs to bring the best of minds and energy and effort back to working with the government.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Even in faculty.
What about if there are if I ask today in the room of a lot of people running companies, who do you want to work for? Who do you want to support? They'll say, I want to support my country first. You give half a chance, 9 out of 10 people will say, I know many people will say, we'll take less money, we'll work for less money, but give us a chance for working for India, Viksit Bharat, they'll take the challenge. Are you
agree.
open to taking talent in?
Yes.
And for people who want to work in science and technology, deep space exploration, sea exploration, when we hear of these projects, sir, we are excited. When we hear of your deep ocean plans, we are excited. Anybody with a technology mind will say, give me a chance to work.
No,
how do they
agree.
approach you?
Yes,
people can't meet Jitendra Singh every day.
No.
So how do they, is there a way they can reach you?
No, I'm one of the most
close
accessible
circle around
persons.
you?
I don't even function by hierarchy. I pick up my
but how
mobile
does
and
someone
call up
reach- how
any
does someone
youngster
reach
or
you?
any, even the smallest rank officer.
but how does someone reach
But what
the
I'm trying
government?
to say is that with all the modesty in my command, we have to be actually, I agree with you, very consciously cautious of the fact that we do not willingly or unwillingly, consciously, unconsciously create a hurdle or half a hurdle,
Yes.
which discourages our budding startup or budding
Yes.
entrepreneur and change and prompts him or her to change her or his course. That is a challenge.
Sir.
Because we have a legacy which has grown in that mindset. So we
Correct.
need to address that. I agree with you with all the modesty at my command.
That itself is very good. How many hours a work day does the PMO work? I get a feeling that you guys hardly get to sleep. You're on a mission. You're running things around. I mean, it
There are
must
no
be.
working hours.
The government,
The work has to be
Is the
completed.
Prime Minister a hard taskmaster?
Yes, but he's himself a very hard-working person. So
That
you
we
can't
know.
match his hard work, the kind of hard work that he puts in, and the kind of acclimatization that he said. I was telling somebody trying to learn many things from him, but one thing I think I'll never be, I would not even try to, is his adjustment to the altitudes. He can travel to Siachen and Leh in the morning,
Yeah.
deliver a lecture over there,
Yeah.
and come back to Delhi and convene a meeting at 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
So coming back from 15,000 meters to the plains, and normally any one of us visiting there is asked to take rest for half a day at least, or a full day. So I think he's trained himself in a manner that nobody else can be. It's a huge role model.
You're very lucky to work with him, sir.
Absolutely.
I got my time is up, otherwise I would have gone on and on. But I think you're a man on a mission. And the fact that you flew down to inspire all the people in this room today,
No, actually,
it was important. It was important we had you.
You don't have to be grateful to me. I look forward to reach out to these youngsters because they teach me.
Yeah.
You see, and I tell you, our tier 2 and tier 3 city youngsters,
Absolutely,
young
absolutely.
boys and girls
Yes, sir.
are so full of ideas. I'll give you one small example without
Sir.
taking much time. The other day I traveled to this place called Dholpur. It's a
Okay.
small aspirational district.
Yes, sir.
So I suggested I must go to one of the government schools. So they said, which government school? So I went to Government Girls High School. We have very recently, last year, launched a dedicated scheme for girls that is called Vigyan Jyoti, because I thought we should catch them young, and the most sensitive years are class 9 to class 12, because that's where they are changing, they are deciding the course of their career. So one girl, and I said I was just like, want to listen. Suddenly a girl rose up in a small town, and she says, sir, I have a compliment and a complaint. So I said, child, you first come with the compliment so that I get little encouraged. She says, the compliment is, they're very good idea, Vigyan Jyoti. But the complaint is, why cut off class 9? I'm class 8, why not me?
Brilliant.
In the evening, I came back, and the first thing I tell the secretary, I said, this small little girl has taught me. He said, we'll have some financial constraints. I said, well, we should try working out.
Wonderful.
We are still have that class 9.
Superb.
Similarly, about 5 or 6 years back, just close to COVID, There was a class 12 girl. I'm telling you this, how much there's to learn from there. And you should not feel shy talking to me. I mean, we are short of time. Otherwise, I would have loved to listen more to you than to talk to you. The age of single discourse is over. Otherwise, you'll go home and at your dinner table make fun, crack jokes with your parents as so-and-so came and delivered a long discourse. So it's better to listen to. A girl, she was just out of class 12, from a small town, Jammu Kashmir very well, Sopur, which was in news for all the wrong things, the militants.
Yeah.
She had cleared her IIT.
Wow.
So I called her and I said, child, you've done wonders. You live in a town where you don't have much of coaching.
Yeah.
You don't have, and she came from not a very high socioeconomic class also. And I said, you also have not much of support from the family, not much of coaching. Still, you've done it. And you know what she does? She takes out from her pocket this and shows me. Sir, 8 months, 14 hours, IIT crack. She's giving me the formula.
Fantastic.
कि सर पे तेल डालो for 8 months. A slog for 14 hours every day, you can crack IIT. Amazing. Everything is available. So why I'm saying so is, there's a huge democratization of opportunities today. That's why we are getting toppers from small towns. You don't have to go to a big town. In our times, if I had to do a thesis, my guide would say, go and get this book. Where do I get it? He would say, go to British Council Library. It happened with me. I went to the British Council Library in Delhi. They said, we have the book, but it has been taken by the consulate office in Calcutta. So you wait for 2 months. But you are lucky. These young boys and girls are so lucky. It's just that you have to have the passion. And India has everything to offer you. Super. So you're very lucky. I wish I was born in this age.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Singh. Very inspiring today.
Thank you, Arnav. Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Session.
I enjoyed it.
Louder round of applause for him, please. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir.